Hey guys, how's it going? Ghost Rich here today, and today we're going to be taking the heads off this motor and the intake manifold so that way we can get ready to do an MDS delete, or at least check out the lifters. Since I bought this motor, I haven't started it yet, and I want to make sure that everything's in good working order before I start working on it and putting it into the Jeep, because once it's in and I tidy up, to check the lifters afterwards requires ripping out the radiator and absolutely everything again. So I'd rather just actually do new gaskets right now, and it's really easy when the engine's out. If not, depending on the vehicle that you have for this 5.7 Hemi, you are going to have to do some disassembly to the front end so that way you can access the entire front end here and the heads. So if you're wondering about the wiring harness and how to remove certain clips, I'm going to have a video up right in front of this one, and I'll actually put it in the description so that way you can go and see how to unplug all the wires. I know you don't see the coil packs on right now. I will show you how to remove the coil packs and unplug the injectors. That'll be edited in right after I finish this. So that'll be the first part you see. The next thing I'm going to go and do is I'm going to drop the headers. Now, the thing is I'm not going to pull the headers completely off yet. What I needed to do was unplug the bungs, which again, you can see how to do that with the video that I've got in the description there. But first and foremost, I'm going to pull out these two bolts so that way I can move these exhaust pieces out of the way. And then from there, we can do our manifold right here if we want to first. And then we can also do right here by pulling off our valve cover. Now, first things first, if you notice something's getting really tight in there, it's known for these exhaust manifold bolts to snap. So just be careful when doing it. Apparently, it's actually better to do it with an impact gun rather than a ratchet, because apparently the impact gun, it does it nice and quick and less chance of snapping the heads, where apparently with ratchets, they have more chance of snapping the heads. That's just a rumor I heard. But anyways, let's get this going. Just go ahead and pop these up. Again, you can use whatever you'd like, and then you can press the center and wiggle and pull up. It's pretty easy. I'm just going to pull one of these out so you can see. Now, remember, when you're taking these out, you can feel that there isn't a whole lot of torque on these. So when you put it back in, don't be going all ham, because if you do, you could strip out the plastic, which isn't a good thing either, because you want these things to seal up. So, as you can see, that's loose, that's loose. And we just want to pop out that coil like that. Look at that. They put a good amount of dielectric on there. After you've gotten your coils out, I would suggest hitting all around the edges if you have any debris with a vacuum like I've done. And then if you want, just take this and wipe it up. Just since you already have it off, wipe these up. Make sure, if you can, you push away from inside the spark plug area there. You do not want any debris getting, of course, in the head. So that's why I always take the extra step. Make sure, if you even want to, you can make the paper towel a little bit damp just so it picks up all the dust. If you like, go ahead, grab a 5/8 spark plug socket. You can tell it has this on the edge, and it's got that rubber seat on the inside to hold the plug. Go ahead and slip it in and pull it out. Just so there's no mishaps, ratchet flick this way. Remember, that way's to tighten, this way's to loosen. And you might need both hands to get these puppies out. Once it feels like you've been screwing forever, which you probably have. Oh, you can see my boot didn't fully seat. All I gotta do is squish it in, squish it down. Oh, I even have some more threads to go. That always happens to me. I always think, oh, I've gotten all the threads. Let's see. Oh, there's our plug. Flip it up. Wow, look at that. These plugs are looking pretty good. Injectors. These things are a little fun sometimes. I like to put my thumb right like this and pop up, and then you can release it like that. And then move on to the next. And again, if there's a little bit of dirt in there, it's fun. Handy dandy vice grips are on there. Like I said, it might be easier just to do this. Make sure you use something metal, not your fingers. Make sure you collect all bolts afterwards. If you're going to reuse them, I would highly suggest replacing this hardware in the most controlled fashion you can. Just like that. After taking a look around, we're going to actually pull off our intake manifold first. So to do that, come over here, grab this, and you'll notice that this needs to come up and off. Mine's pretty deteriorated. We'll see if it wants to come off nice. All right, that's kind of sketchy. I don't really want to pull my, you know what? Even if I break this thing, I'm not opening my oil. Don't open your oil to bring this over. You don't want anything falling in that tube from this if it's dirty. Toss that off to the side with our other stuff. Keep it nice and close. So now that we've done that, the next thing we should be aware of is I'm going to do these fuel rails and just pop these off and put them off to the side. 10 mil will work perfect for these ones. These ones should come out like no problem. Make sure you feel that tension. So that way when you put these back in, you know, because these only go into plastic. And if you go and start wrenching on these things when you put them back in, you're for sure going to strip that plastic. So just something to note. Right here, that is a 13. If you're wondering how that comes off, all you do is you take a 13, slide it on like so, throw your ratchet on and loosen it off. From there, a number 4 baby socket on here, and just go just like that, and you'll get it out. Now chances are, I actually hate that plastic cover that's on the engine, so I'm probably going to be swapping this bolt out in the end to something like the other bolts. They're cheap, and I'll match something up, and that'll go here so that way I never have to use this one again. But like I said, a little number 4 will pull it out. If you want to, you could either have a whole bunch of little Tupperware containers, whatever you want to do, and take some painter's tape and label those little Tupperware containers so you know which screws those are for. From there, slightly lift, and you should feel those injectors come out. Give it a wiggle as you do it, just like that. And over here, and we are out. So there is a little bit of fuel in there. After we do that, I'm gonna lift this, put it right here, maybe off to the side, just like that, perfect. Go to the other side, do the same thing. Take these fuel rails, put them somewhere safe. You don't wanna damage your injectors. With a number 8 on the side of the motor here, go ahead, put it on and start cranking these bad boys loose. If you really wanted to, you could go ahead if you have an impact and quickly just remove all of them. Take this bracket off. We just want to free the throttle body. To do so, we got to take this one off, and we might have to take the last one off. Let's see. Oh, again, make sure we label where this one went. Or what you can do is put it back into right here, like that, after you're done, so that way you don't lose that screw. Next is to take this bolt off. And what I would do, like I said, is after we get this off, just put that bolt back on. Just hand thread it on, then you can't lose them. For this connector, it'll be on here. Wiggle this in between, pop it off. Once you've done that, you can see I have this all free. Technically, you can leave the bolts in here. I've popped some of them out. I do want to clean these bolts, so they will be coming out. I just want to clean off some of the rust from the engine being outside. So after that, now that we've taken off all the bolts around the surrounding, wiggle it, lift up, and put it somewhere safe. If you want to, another thing you can do is plug in your vacuum before you lift it and suck up all the debris from around it. We're going to have to run the vacuum anyway once we pop this off. It's always a good idea, clean up the whole area there and underneath this. Look at that, it's free. I'm not gonna lift this off while I have a camera in my hand, or maybe I will. Give me 1 sec. Make sure you have a clean place to land it. I just wiped off that section just over here. After we remove that bracket, just lift this right off. Put this over here just like so. We'll inspect that afterwards. I can see that the rats got in here, holy smokes. So the good news is there's only like 1 or 2 parts that I'm really worried about in here. The rest of it are those solenoids. We're deleting those solenoids. So I'm gonna get my vacuum and I'm gonna suck up all this insulation and stuff that's in here. I just vacuumed up a bunch of insulation. I have to do a lot of cleaning in here. The good news is it's not a VW, so the rats didn't eat the wires. If it was a VW, those rats would have been all over that. So next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and start to unplug some stuff here, but the first thing that I've got to do is vacuum up in here a little bit more. I just pulled this piece out. If I were you, work it out carefully, especially if it's been sitting there for a while. Just lift it slowly and you should be able to keep in one piece. For me, whatever the rat's left behind, I'm going to put this off to the side, and from there disconnect those plugs. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. I'm going to one-handed try and show you what I'm doing here. Old toothbrush. I'm just going and scrubbing it nice and clean in here. You don't have to do this. I just don't want all this in here. And since those animals are in here, filthy animals. Right here, you can slide these back just like that. You just grab them on the sides. And these are the parts that we're going to be deleting, which are these little pieces in here. So if you somehow break these clips, don't cry, because you'll never use them again. Unless you want to put MDS back in, which I really can't see you wanting to. Ignore the leaf blower outside. So after we've done that, and we've gone ahead and unclipped all these, before you pop these sensors out, make sure you have the plugs, the solenoid plugs. I don't have them yet. That's why I'm not going to pop these off yet. Now that we've unplugged those, let's start taking off our valve covers. Now again, if you want to, you can take these bolts, and I bet you're wondering, like, is he actually labeling them and stuff? Look at that. Yes, I am. Once you've gone ahead and done so, grab and give it a good yank. Should come right off. Well, doesn't that look pretty? Go put this somewhere safe. Got in here, got this loose, used a little bit of a box wrench. Well, as you can see, this has a groove. What that's meant for is so you can put a socket on here, go like this, loosens the tension off, get that off your, just clear off your pulleys. Basically, take the tension off, work it off your alt or your fan, whatever you want to do first. After you do that, time to take out these two bolts right here and get our alternator out of the way. It's gonna have to come out of the way anyway. Socket size is a number 15. Go ahead, make sure she's on loosen and give her a loosen. Make sure you crack them both loose first. Just like I said, it helps to have bolts there so you can get them loose first. Now we're good. Now I'm just gonna continue wrenching and lift it up and out. Keep a hand on the alternator. It is quite heavy, and if you pull the bolts out and you don't have it in your hand, then it could hit the ground and then you need a new alternator, or it'll chip your concrete. If you get it to this point, you can't get it under here, there's a area, look at that. Just lift it up and out. I need to catch this. Like I said, just lift up, out, make sure you're not on like way over here. Make sure you're over here and then lift. Put your bolts back in your alternator. Keeps the nuts from falling out the back. Go ahead, stick your finger in the hole. And now you can lift this out of the way. Look at that. Beautiful. You can tell this engine does not have a whole lot of kilometers on it. You can see though that this gasket, I would not have trusted. Yeah, these gaskets are a little rough looking. So next, you're gonna see this little grounding strap. Throw on your 13 mil. Go ahead and crack them loose. That one and that one. Once you get those loose, I would just tape them up, label it, and that way you don't forget it. Want to see something crazy? See, this one's solid. Come over here. I haven't even tried to wrench this one yet, and it's already snapped. So I already got one, which I get to try and extract later. So if you want to, you can try and crack these now while it's on the vehicle. If you do, it's a 10 mil. Go ahead and try and pull the heads of these ones off. Actually, that one might be a little bit tinier. Let's see here. But I think it's this one, which is definitely a 10 mil. Yeah, so go ahead, try and crank these out. Again, they're known to snap. If they do,
just be ready to get your extractor kit ready because you're gonna have to pull them out. Once you get that bolt, and the two on the ends out, best part is you will be able to get that metal shield out of the way. Now you can get your 10 mil on here and get those last ones out. Once you get all the centers out, because they're all still 10 mils, now you've got your corner ones. All four corners are going to have a 13 mil behind it. So now, get those last 13s out. This one, that one, the one that's already broken for me, and the other one. And then go ahead and do it to the other side. Make sure you do, if you can, leave these in loose, so that way you can undo them by hand and catch your header.
Like I said, when you get to that last bolt, holding it,
Cranking it. I broke all four of them loose before I took the other three out, but now I can hold on to the header, loosen that one out, and put the header off to the side. Get lucky like me and you get your vice grips at a very tight setting, and you do have a bolt break, you might be able to do this. So, if it's not wanting to come easy, make sure you shoot it with a bit of penetration fluid, so that way that lubricant just does its job. Switching back to our 10 mil,
we're gonna go ahead and start cranking these bad boys loose. Yeah. And again, there. He gets it with one hand. And he gets another one. Just go ahead, crack them all loose, and then pull them out. Look at the eye. Perfect. Remember that. Next thing we're gonna do, after you've got all these screws undone, double check. Go ahead, grab this whole thing here, keep it just like this. Put it off to the side. I'll tell you why if you do this, just like this in a second. What we're gonna do is pull out each push rod that you see right here, and we're gonna put that right next to here. And what you're gonna end up wanting to do in the end, I'm gonna put this actually right here, is we're gonna swap it so it's kind of like this, and you're gonna put them here. And if you want to, what you can do is tape this down, and then you're gonna tape each push rod next to it. And the reason why is each push rod is a different size. If you mix them up, your engine will run really bad, right, Mika? Really bad, you tell them. So from this point, you would pull each push rod out, go over here, and put them in the order you pulled them out. So just like this. And like I said, by doing so, you're gonna save yourself a whole ton of headache. Even, yeah, we'll even just do this. It's fine just like this. And I am gonna be putting a little bit of tape. It's good to note which way they went. There we go. Now that we have all our push rods for this layer out, go loosen the next one, put it off to the next side. I might even flip that over just so I can do four corners. So if we take these push rods and we compare them, you'll notice that these ones are the same size, which are good. And then if we come over here and we take a look here, these ones should all be the same size. As we can see, they are. But see how these ones are not? So you can tell that the ones up top are shorter. So if you want, you could group those together and put this off to the side. Just make sure you remember which one goes where. If I were you, I would still kind of leave them laid out if you want. Depends how much room you have to work in your garage. Next, loosen these ones up. And yes, I already loosened these. I actually forgot I loosened these. Anyways, those are all loose. All those bolts are the same size, we're all good. Time for the breaker bar and a 15, and go and make sure you go the right way. And the right way is down like this against the clock. If you go with the clock, you'll snap the head, go against the clock, and it'll loosen off. Again, if you really wanted to, you could hit them with a impact, but I think I'm just gonna do this. All bolts are the same size, same with those. That's why they're like that. Not too worried. Good job, Mika, on the sorting. Now, if we come over here, it's time to lift the head off. You can see all the bolts are out. we've pulled the Pushrods out, so we know we're not going to bend them on the way out. And we have all the screws up top. Manifold is off to try and keep it a bit lighter because those manifolds still add some weight. And I can tell you now, that is heavy. So what you're going to have to do now is manhandle it. Grab it. You have to break the seal because there's going to be a gasket in there. Wiggle it. Do what you got to do. Try and find a good place to hold it, even if it's up here with a supporting hand down here.
Next thing you can do is take a look at those beautiful piston heads. If your pistons look like they have any cracks or anything, you can also look at the sidewalls, look for any scores. I do not see any scores in these sidewalls, but one thing I'm glad about is I opened this up, because look at all this junk in here. Gonna have to vacuum that up, vacuum this up.
But first and foremost, go ahead and take off that dual layer gasket. Put it off to the side because you're going to replace that. There's no way you reuse it. 8mm socket. Go in here. If you want, before you pop these out, go ahead and hit this with a vacuum. Just so that way it should be good. But just in case any debris fell in here when you took the head off, because taking the head off can be quite the spicy thing. So I'm just going to pop them both out just so that way it's just done.
All right. Now you'll see one side will be labeled for the MDS. Either way, you might be doing the budget way and only trying to replace 4 of the MDS lifters if you're doing the MDS delete. I will tell you this though, replace them all. And the reason why is all lifters fail, whether they're MDS or not. That worked great. So let's go ahead and check. First thing I'm going to do is put the yoke off to the side. Heck, let's just put the yoke right here for a sec. So what you're looking for is up and down play. If you can lift this up and down and it doesn't move, well, let's show you right there. Try and lift it up and down. If you have no up and down play, that's a good lifter. So that one's still good. And this is a collapsible one. You can tell because it has the hole right here for where the oil would push into the cylinder right here and then pop it to collapse. And why I'm doing this to a motor that's like this is after I put it in, I don't want it to go and then have to deal with this futurely down the road when I already have the engine out. I'd rather just take care of something that has been brought to my attention. As you can see, once again, no movement. I don't think we're going to see any. What you would see if it was doing this is you'd put your fingers right here and you could move this. This needle bearing would move and it would not be a good day in paradise. That would also mean that your cam is shot. In this case, it doesn't matter because we're replacing the cam to a non-MDS one. Next thing to do is go do the other side. I'm not going to show you how to do that because it literally comes out the same way. Just once again, keep your parts in the right designated areas. Remember, short rods up top, long rods on the bottom. You can see that there's a bolt going through right here. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. I don't know if it's connected yet, but if it is, I don't want anything causing resistance.
That's a 13 mil. Yeah, it definitely went through. I just pulled that out of there. So what I'm gonna do is just put this off to the side with the left bolts right here. This will be my kind of reminder, but I'll also be tagging that in a second. Time to lift that off and get it out of the way. Keep in mind that when you do pull these heads off, a little bit of coolant is gonna come out. Really important to note, because if you have fluffy animals, make sure they're inside, because it smells sweet to them and they will drink it and they could die. So you want to not have that happen. Pull this off. And remember, we're going to have debris in here. Look at all that debris. So this is important because see all that debris in the cylinder heads? We're going to suck that all out immediately. Well, the good news is there was no lifter failure with this engine. So if you weren't doing an MDS swap on this thing, all you would do is slide in your new lifters and away you go. Oh, you have to put it back together, of course. But if you've noticed that one of your lifters is moving up and down, or you are doing the MDS swap, so that way you no longer have it. All right, so the next thing we're basically been doing is removing our water pump, so that way we can access our timing cover. Now to do that, need a 13 mil, and we're literally just gonna start going around 13 there, 13 there. Every couple bolts, I'm gonna record where they go. See this shorty? This is a short one. This one right here is a long one. You'll see right here, this one is a short one. If we compare it next to the other, we know it's the exact same size. So that's the first top three, and let's continue on. And make sure you monitor the sizes, and if you can, take a diagram and draw where each size went. The one immediately under this pulley right here is another long one. Let's see if it's the same length as that other long one.
Take a look at that, it is two. So now we know that one goes, or those two
can be interchangeable. Take this one out, it's a shorty. Make sure it's just as short as the other ones,
and it is. Perfect.
Let's continue.
Right here, pull this one out. You can see that one's long like the other two. That one is a shorty. So the top one is the long one, the bottom is a shorty. And then if we come right here, right by the tube, we'll pull that one out. And look at this. That's a special one. Look how long that one is. That one's longer than the rest. So if we put these ones up, you can see those ones match up. That one there and that one we just pulled out is the longest.
So you can see there's different size bolts
everywhere on this thing. That is exactly why we're doing this.
Bottom right here, pull it out. Look how long that one is. Let's make sure it's just as long as our other ones. Yep. So that one's just as long as that other super long one we have. After we do that, we come up here. Pull this one out. That's the one that's right up and in here, just above the crank pulley. That one is our normal size, little midget ones. Yep. And then we have one last bolt right there. So I'll lift the fan and I'll get this last one out and we'll see what size it is. There we go. And it's the mid-size, not the longest, not the shortest, but the mid-size one. And now that we know where every one of these bolts. Last but not least, before we try and pull this off, go ahead, put a 15 on here, slide it on and remove. Easy for this one. It is literally, it's probably our longest and it has that nut. So keep that nut on the back
and go ahead and label them. Actually, it's not our longest. See how it's not the longest, but you know which one it is because it's got the nut on the back.
So just remember, it goes right there. Now, a lot of you might be like, oh, Richard, you duped us. Why'd you have us remove the water pump when we didn't need to? To tell you the truth, if you're doing this, you should redo your water pump gasket. I just removed the water pump. For you, I wanted to remove the water pump because I want to redo the gasket because, well, I have the engine apart. It's just a good thing to do. Or even just replace the water pump just because it's already out. Now, thing is, now that it's out, let's say you didn't want it out, leave the short bolts in, long bolts out. So, like I said, go back, all those long bolts that I pulled out, pull them out and leave the shorties in.
Cool thing you can do right now is you can spin your crank by hand and take a look at your cylinders and look for any gouges in the cylinder walls. I do not see any. I see a little bit of fluids, yes, but I don't see any gouges. Just something cool for you to see. You'll notice that these bolts are all like the longer ones that were in here. So I'm gonna put those off to the side. That tells me that they weren't in the water pump. And like I said, I'm just gonna leave these couple in here right now until I get the pulley off, because it is gonna put some strain on it when we go to do this. And I'm gonna see what kind of pulley system I'm gonna need to pop that off. When it comes to the crankshaft bolt, it's really hard and you have to put a lot of strain on the crank to do it with a ratchet. This is where an investment of even just a cheaper impact is really, really good to have around the garage, and I highly suggest you get one. If you hit it with this, it'll come out just like it should and it won't spin the crank moving the pistons. If you do it with even a breaker bar, like so, it's just going to continuously move the pistons. It's a lot harder to do. And then, yeah, so just hit it with the rattle gun, it'll pop it out, and then we'll go from there. I have a harmonic balancer puller. So, go ahead, put it like this, tuck it around the back end. It should just fit in. That's why we're double washering, so that way I know it's got strength. And again, if you have a pulley kit, this is probably what it's gonna look like for you. And again, these bolts are not from this kit because of the harmonic balancer. Those actually go into the kit. All right, that one right there. Go ahead, bring it around through here. You get the gist. Do the same thing with two other bolts and bring it in from behind. After you get them in there, see the trifecta? Line it up and put those bolts in with the nuts on that side. That way we'll have that centerpiece that'll push against the shaft. It should have something like this so that way it doesn't work its way in there and wreck the threads. And what you're gonna do is slowly tighten it after we get those. But let me set it up and I'll show you exactly what we're doing. So let's go over it. See how it's hooked there by the washer and the nut? Up there hooked by the washer and nut. Same with down here, hooked by washer and nut. Centerpiece has that little cone shape and it's pushing into the crankshaft. Now we tighten this and it should pull the pulley forward because this is tying into the pulley. So as we tighten it, it's gonna pull it closer this way, and these are gonna act as a grabber. So as we tighten this and it presses against the crank, it's gonna pull the pulley off. Again, you're gonna need an impact gun. Otherwise it's just gonna spin. So go ahead and tighten her up. I know I'm not using an impact socket, I'm horrible. Literally tightened it. It got nice and tight and popped her off. As you can see, it slid right out. Now that we've slid out and we're good, now it's time to go ahead and put this off to the side. Before we pop out these 3 bolts here, go ahead, put a 10 mil on and take out this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. The front 5, so that way we have access to here. If you're going to be doing your oil pan and all that other fun stuff, well, your oil pan gasket, you can do that now too, because I mean, it's all apart and it's a good time to do your oil pump if you haven't done it in a while. Once you've gotten those 5 out here, let's grab these last 13 mils and make sure they're the exact same screw. Loosen off this 13. After that, 13 and back down over here. 13. Again, leave them in loose until you get them all. So I used a pry bar, managed to get it, then I used vice grip to rock the post back and forth and it slipped out. Definitely a lot of craziness. But now that that's free, we should be able to get the front cover off. Well, there she is, boys and squirrels. We got the cover off. So next thing we're gonna have to do is get ready to lock our timing. And the reason why is because we're going to be taking out the camshaft. When you take out the camshaft, you're going to be loosening the timing chain. Retiming this is perfectly fine. If you want to right now, what you can do is you should be turning this with the crank, so you should put the crankshaft bolt back in. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna replace it yet. We're just gonna throw in the crankshaft bolt, and that way we can turn the motor. I'm gonna actually quickly fire up my vacuum though, and I'm just gonna suck up as much of this as I can, since of course a little debris fell down as per usual when taking the cover off. Well, we've come a long way. But at this point, I think I'm going to be ending the video until I get the parts in necessary to finish the process. Things that I need to get in are the blocker plates, the new camshaft, and all the gaskets. And the new lifters. Because if we're in this deep, we're switching the lifters out because they're prone to go. If you want to do your timing, I want to quickly show you one thing. See how we have a goalpost going on? This is a good thing. See how the orange is our football? It's going through our gold post. That's actually a really good thing because that means we're perfectly timed for the camshaft right now for when we jam our timing. See how this piston is at its utmost, meaning it will not go up or down anymore. At that point, we know our crankshaft is lined up. On the bottom of the crankshaft, there is another line like this on the bottom chain, or the bottom piece of the chain. And rather than two, like a goalpost, there's just one. So that's going to be lined up right there. You want to leave that one lined up right there. And we know that that's going to be perfect because of how this is and how our piston is resting. So at this point, I'm going to tell you to wait for my other video. And if you're going to go and do your oil pump right here, if you want to get ahead of things, go ahead and take off the rest of these bolts. You want to pop the rest of your oil pan bolts off all the way around and drop it. Of course, first drain the fluid. At this point, it's a good time to drain the fluid because what we've done is we've taken everything apart, so any debris that's in there should bring the debris into the pan, and we should be able to drain it all out, including coolant that might have come out when we took the heads off. All right. Once you get that pan off, drained, if you want, like I said, you'll just have to drop a couple bolts here so we can change our oil pump. Because you might as well change your oil pump while you're in here, as well as the timing chain. I'll go more into that in the next video. I just wanted to quickly give you a bit of a run through what you'll have to do to get there. Make sure you get a new oil pump with your timing kit. So from that point, and here we are. We know we're perfectly timed. We know where we're at. If you're going to do the MDS delete, please watch my next video when we reassemble.